talk about fetal circulation. Now, fetal circulation is different from adult circulation. It is different because in fetal circulation, the lungs are non-functional and then the placenta is present. Because the lungs are non-functional, the placenta is actually where gaseous exchange occurs. Now, it is different from adult circulation. In adult circulation, usually deoxygenated blood is taken to the right atrium via the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. From the right atrium, the blood goes to the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, the blood is pumped into the pulmonary artery, goes to the lungs, becomes oxygenated. When the blood becomes oxygenated, it is carried back to the left atrium via the pulmonary vessels, the pulmonary veins, and then from the left atrium it goes to the left ventricle, and then it is pumped into the aorta, and then it goes to the systemic circulation. But in fetal circulation, there is a whole lot of differences. First of all, the placenta is present, and then there's a connection between the placenta and the fetus. And that connection is what is known as the umbilical cord. The umbilical cord. Now, the umbilical cord has two arteries and a vein. And so, blood that is coming from the tissues of the fetus is carried by the umbilical artery. Of course, the umbilical artery extends from the internal iliac arteries, and then it enters the umbilical cord and goes to the placenta. And in the placenta, there is exchange of gaseous materials. That is to say that the maternal blood receives carbon dioxide from the fetal blood, and the fetal blood receives oxygen from the maternal blood. And then the umbilical vein carries the oxygenated blood into the liver. Now, in the liver, some of the blood is actually deposited, and then majority of the blood is shunted to the inferior vena cava via a shunt that is known as the ductus venosus. These are ductus venosus. Now, when the blood gets to the inferior vena cava, it is taken to the right atrium. It is taken to the right atrium, and majority of the blood that gets to the right atrium is actually shunted to the left atrium via a shunt or an opening that is in the interatrial septum called the foramen ovale. Now, blood is also carried from the superior vena cava into the right atrium, and then some of the blood mixes with the blood that is coming from the inferior vena cava, and then the majority of the blood that is coming from the superior vena cava goes to the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, the blood is pumped into the pulmonary artery. Now, when the blood gets to the pulmonary artery, it is most likely that the blood will want to go to the lungs, right? But then, in the lungs, there is a very high pressure in the lungs because the alveoli are filled with fluid, and then the pulmonary capillaries are actually constricted. Because the pulmonary capillaries are constricted, the pressure in the lungs is usually very high. And because of the high pressure in the lungs, the blood is diverted from the pulmonary artery to the aorta. Now, please also know that the pressure in the pulmonary artery is higher than the pressure in the aorta. So blood will likely move to the aorta. And usually, the blood is actually shunted to the aorta via an opening, via a shunt that is known as the ductus arteriosus. Now, the blood that is coming from the inferior vena cava that is shunted to the foramen ovale into the left atrium. Eventually, of course, it gets to the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, the blood is pumped into the aorta. Now, when it gets to the aorta, some of the majority of the oxygenated blood goes to the head of the fetus, and then some of the blood goes down to other tissues. Now, majority of the blood carried by the pulmonary artery goes to the trunk and the lower body of the fetus, while majority of the blood that is carried by the aorta goes to the head of the fetus. Now, the blood that is carried by the aorta returns to the placenta via the umbilical artery. And then, of course, in the placenta, gaseous exchange between the maternal blood and the fetal blood usually occur. Now, let us look at what happens in the placenta. Now, coming to the diagram, you observe that this is actually the fetal blood vessel, and this is the maternal blood vessel. Now, the fetal blood does not mix with the maternal blood, and there is a difference between the red blood cell of the fetal blood and the red blood cell of the maternal blood. Now, the red blood cell of the fetal blood contains hemoglobin F, or what we call fetal hemoglobin. And fetal hemoglobin consists of 2 alpha chain and 2 gamma chain. Whereas the maternal red blood cell contains adult hemoglobin. And adult hemoglobin contains 2 alpha chain and 2 beta chain. The difference between the fetal hemoglobin and the adult hemoglobin is that the fetal hemoglobin binds less effectively with 2,3 DPG. And because it binds less effectively with 2,3 DPG, it now usually have more affinity for oxygen. Now, let's talk about what happens in the fetal tissue. Now, in the fetal tissue, of course, this is a fetal capillary and this is the tissue. Now, oxygen is released from the red blood cell into the cells of the tissue, and then oxygen combines with glucose to give us energy and carbon dioxide. And the carbon dioxide combines with water to produce bicarbonate ion and an hydrogen ion. Now, usually, carbon dioxide is carried in the fetal blood in the form of bicarbonate ion. And so, in the placenta, the fetal blood releases carbon dioxide to the maternal blood, and the maternal blood releases oxygen to the fetal blood. Now, when the baby is born, the placenta is cut off. Of course, the umbilical cord is cut off and then the placenta is removed. When the placenta is removed, the blood flowing via the umbilical vein is cut off. And when that blood is cut off, of course, hypoxia and hypercapnia becomes the resultant effect. So when the baby becomes hypoxic, then there will be a strong stimulation of the respiratory centers of the baby. And so the baby will take the first gasp and respiration will occur. Now, when respiration occurs, the pressure in the lungs will reduce. Now, the reduction in pressure in the lungs is as a result of the fact that the air that the baby takes in replaces the fluid in the alveoli, and when that happens, the pressure drops. And also, the capillaries, the pulmonary capillaries that was initially constricted becomes dilated. When the pulmonary capillaries dilate, the pressure in the lungs reduces. Because the pressure in the lungs is reduced, blood that is coming from the pulmonary artery will likely flow to the lungs, becomes oxygenated, and goes to the left atrium. When the blood reaches the left atrium, you observe that the pressure in the left atrium will be higher than the pressure in the right atrium. The increase in pressure in the left atrium will result in the closure of foramen ovale. So foramen ovale will close, and also the pressure in the pulmonary artery becomes less than the pressure in the aorta. Because the pressure in the aorta is larger than the pressure in the pulmonary artery, oxygenated blood may likely want to flow in the reverse direction via the ductus arteriosus. Now, because the blood has a high concentration of oxygen, the smooth muscles of ductus arteriosus, of course, will respond to the high concentration of oxygen in the blood and will begin to constrict. So the factors that actually brings about the constriction of the ductus arteriosus are high oxygen content or high oxygen concentration and high concentration of bradykinin in the blood. Now, when the lungs become functional, they begin to produce bradykinin. And so when blood passes through the lungs, it carries along with it bradykinin. Of course, bradykinin will cause the constriction of ductus arteriosus. Now, another factor that brings about the closure of the ductus arteriosus is decreased prostaglandin. Now, prostaglandin is produced when arachidonic acid is converted to prostaglandin by cyclooxygenase. The placenta usually produces prostaglandin. Now, when the umbilical cord is cut off, there is a drastic reduction in prostaglandin, which results in the constriction of ductus arteriosus. Also, after that, when the umbilical cord is cut off, the umbilical artery and umbilical veins begin to constrict and eventually becomes ligaments. Now, when the baby is born, of course, foramen ovale becomes fossa ovale, ductus arteriosus becomes ligamentum arteriosus. Ductus venosus becomes ligamentum venosus. The umbilical vein becomes ligamentum teres. And then the umbilical artery becomes the medial umbilical ligament. So let me repeat this again. The foramen ovale becomes fossa ovale. The ductus arteriosus becomes ligamentum arteriosus. The ductus venosus becomes ligamentum venosus. The umbilical vein becomes ligamentum teres. And the umbilical artery becomes medial umbilical ligament. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you in our next class.